Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this Bad Brews competition number 2, the Firesong and Sunspeaker. So over at RogueDeckBuilder.com, Tyler has been doing a contest called Bad Brews, where we're going to take a card that takes a lot of work to brew around and see what we can come up with as a community. So right now, the writers at RogueDeckBuilder.com are open to this, or any of the patrons over at Patreon can submit decks for Bad Brews. Now, Bad Brews number 1 was around Dubious Challenge, and I edged out the second place person, I think it was Tasty, for the Dubious Rebirth or Dubious Challenge Bad Brews winner, and I was able to then pick the next card, Firesong and Sunspeaker, for this contest, and it is open to basically any format, including Brawl. So I thought I'd show you my Brawl deck tech with the Firesong and Sunspeaker, which I think it's going to be a pretty decent little commander, because the Firesong and Sunspeaker does have a lot of cards to work around in Standard. Not a lot of white spells that gain life, but there is a significant amount of them. I'm not sure I even care too much about it, because the 3 damage creature player, whenever you gain life with a white instant or sorcery spell, is not as good as the red instant or sorcery spells you control have lifelink. So for 6 mana for a 4/6 that then adds lifelink to all of your red spells, you can gain a ton of life in Brawl with particular cards like the Hour of Devastation or the Star of Extinction. So I'm going to pull up my deck tech for this Brawl, Firesong and Sunspeaker. And then, of course, the key cards, Star of Extinction, even if you have Firesong out and then cast the Star of Extinction, I have a hard time seeing your opponents come back from that sort of life gain. That's going to be 20 damage to each creature and each planeswalker on the battlefield. So it's going to gain you hundreds of life, usually in a Brawl or Commander type setting. The other one is going to be Hour of Devastation. Very, very similar. It will not kill your own Firesong and Sunspeaker, and then do 5 damage to each creature and each non-Bolas Planeswalker. Again, giving you a lot of life gain, a lot of padding to then set up some win conditions. Then we also have cards like the Fiery Cannonade and the Sweltering Suns that can deal damage to each creature as well, and just gain a lot of life from these particular cards. So I'm just going to go down the deck tech right here. You can see that there's 7 cards missing. These are brand new cards. We'll show them piece by piece as they come up. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the creatures. Nahab actually works pretty well in this deck, because there are a few cards that do damage to players, and therefore once those cards do damage to players, you can then add the mana to your mana pool for your second main phase, and then cast something big after that. Helps ramp up, helps cast your commander if it happened to die. I think it's worthwhile to put a Nahab in this deck. Same thing with Wildfire Eternal. It's one of the other Afflict cards in this particular deck that can allow you to cast an instant or sorcery spell for free if you connect with it. And there are, of course, some heavy converted mana cost spells like Star of Extinction or Hour of Revelation, if there's not permanents out, that can be cheated out with the Wildfire Eternal. This is a card that's very, very terrible in 1 versus 1, but when you add multiplayer into the scope of things, then the Wildfire Eternal is actually pretty good, because you can set up that ability to cast a free instant or sorcery spell. So let's just go by the converted mana costs and go down the list. And so we have at the very end, we don't really have any 1-drops. I included a Braid. I still think that the deck, or this particular format's going to have a lot of Artifacts Matters. We still have Kaladesh in the mix. We had a lot of artifacts from Rival of Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan blocks that were very relevant to then kill. And this can just do 3 damage to our creature, which has the synergy with the commander, with the Firesong. Cathartic Reunion and Torrentic Voice, I think, are just good in a multiplayer setting, because you really do need to set up your cards, get the right amount of cards. Allows you to ditch excess lands. We are running 24 lands, and help us dig for the exact combination we need. And that's kind of what Azor's Gateway is in here for. If Azor's Gateway does flip, it allows us to add X mana of any color to your mana pool, or X our life total. You can already see that X being our life total can be quite high, and I believe we get an X spell out of Dominaria that will work with this. The Thematic Compass is also just going to thin out the deck and be the sad excuse for card advantage we have in this particular deck, just to keep searching for a basic land. And then when it does flip, we can at least keep a commander off or if there's a Voltron type commander, we can stop it from attacking in. It's also pretty good if we need to attack in. I don't think there's anything that we need any sort of raid triggers or whatnot with the Thematic Compass. However, then we'll go on to some of the gain life spells we have access to: Renewed Faith and Ritual of Rejuvenation. You're going to cycle this 100 times just for the 2 life and draw a card. Same thing with the Ritual of Rejuvenation. It just gains you 4 life, draws a card, does 3 damage to a target with your commander. Slaughter the Strong to be one of our another removal. We're going to make sure there's nothing on the board with this deck. We have Slaughter the Strong. I cut Fumigate. Fumigate was the last cut that I ended up cutting out of this deck, but Slaughter the Strong still made it in the cut. The Fiery Cannonade is going to, of course, wipe the board and get a lot of life. And the Shake the Foundation seems pretty good just by drawing a card and gaining a lot of life. So we talked about Sweltering Suns. The mana rock that I'm going to include for this particular deck is just going to be the Raska Relic, just because later on we can then sacrifice it to draw a card if we need to do so. And then Pirate's Pillage is also another pretty decent little card. I love this card as a fixer, as also a ramp. So if you can go Pirate's Pillage, the next turn you can actually sack the artifacts and get your commander out. And Vance's Blasting Cannon, as much as I don't like the wording of this card where it says you may cast rather than play the top card of your library, but in this particular deck, it still is card advantage. If it does flip, it will be some incremental damage you can do per turn. The Wildfire Eternal we talked about. The Chandra Torch of Defiance is just a very, very good planeswalker. Might as well run it. It helps ramp, helps clear the board. It does damage to opponents, which has the synergy with Nahab. Aetherflux Reservoir is going to try to be our finisher. We're going to gain a ton of life, finally get the Aetherflux Reservoir, and hopefully win with the Aetherflux Reservoir. I even thought about putting like Madcap Experiment in this deck just in hopes to dig for a card like Aetherflux Reservoir, but it just didn't quite seem to be worthwhile. The other card I thought about was the card that the X spell that allows you to sacrifice X creatures or artifacts to go and find that amount of artifacts or creatures off the top of your library. It just, again, just seems kind of awkward. There wasn't a lot of targets for us to do so, so I thought, we won't end up playing it. The Trapjaw Tyrant just seems pretty good. You have a lot of cards that deal damage to all creatures, and Trapjaw Tyrant has a pretty decent body that then can exile things. There are going to be some problematic enchantments, and I like to have some outs for that. It did not include Cast Out. I think maybe Cast Out instead of Slaughter the Song would be a pretty decent little swap out, because I'm not sure if we actually need this secondary Slaughter to this or another removal. We're pretty good on that. We talked about our Devastation and Nahab. Hour of Revelation, again, another board wipe that is very good at clearing artifacts and enchantments later on. And Sunbird's Invocation. It's a very good card, especially with X spells. Then you can look at the top. This is going to help us dig for that Aetherflux Reservoir later on. Angrass Marauder seemed like another creature that was pretty decent because we get the double damage effect with the Angrass Marauder. And the Silverclad Ferocidons as well. Same thing. We have a lot of ways that can deal damage to the Ferocidons, then you can make your opponent start sacking permanents. If like Advance's Blasting Cannon gets actually flipped over, that's another thing you can just target your own. Or does it say a creature an opponent controls? Nope. You can target your own Ferocidons and then start making your opponent sacrifice permanents. And then Biforce, and the last card we didn't talk about is the Sanguine Sacrament. This is X and 2 white to gain twice X life. I thought it was pretty decent again for the life gain strategy. This is probably a card that isn't necessary. Could easily be swapped out for something like a cast out. All right, so the non-basic lands I'm just running here. I didn't search long enough for this particular. There might be some cards I missed, but the Stone Quarry, the Scavenger Grounds. This is just for fixing Scavenger Grounds because I think graveyards are going to be a thing in this Brawl format. There are definitely a few of them, like the Scarab God, that you need to take care of the graveyard. The Archer of Araska is just a really good versatile land once you do establish the Ascend. The Clifftop Retreat will be printed in Dominaria, and then both the deserts just for cycling, as well as the Inspiring Vantage. So nothing too crazy here. We're not going to run a lot of planes because the primary color we need in this deck is definitely going to be red. It also is our fixing color with the Tormenting Voice and Cathartic Reunion, so the more mountains the merrier for this particular deck. All right, so on to the cards of Dominaria that are going to be added into the mix. We have the first one being the Flame of Keld. I thought this was a pretty decent little card to add to it because we're not going to be running it until we're probably out of cards to begin with, to discard your hand and draw 2 cards. And then if a red source you control, source, not spell, you control would deal damage to a permanent or player this turn. It deals that much damage plus 2 to that permanent or player instead. I thought this is a pretty decent little card late game. It's going to, it can give you that one turn like massive damage to a permanent or player. with a well-timed spell. Plus, it's going to be able to draw you some cards later on. This might end up not being the best card with the Flame of Keld, with this whole having to discard your hand being awkward. We'll have to see. I'll have to playtest this around, and it can easily get cut. But it seemed pretty fun to try and make it worthwhile. This is going to be a fun little card in the future. There's a couple cards that allow you to manipulate the counters on particular cards, like the Power Conduit. I think this would be pretty fun to draw 2 cards per turn. Radiant Lightning is a pretty decent card in this as an inclusion because it can deal 3 damage to target player and 1 damage to each creature that player controls. You never know if there's going to be some sort of swarm based strategy, but this is definitely going to stop that in its tracks. You can actually target yourself if you want to get the Enraged triggers, because it doesn't say an opponent, it just says target player. Just keep in mind you'll actually gain the life back if you have your particular card out, and then it can deal 1 damage to those Enraged creatures and get the value off of those. The next one is the Jaya's Immolating Inferno. This is our X spell. So 2 red and X, so of course with like Nahab and other ways to get or Azur's Gateway flipped, deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. It's definitely going to be one of our finishers. Of course, you can't cast this unless you have a legendary creature or planeswalker. Works with Nahab, works with your commander. Then, speaking of Jaya, we have the Jaya Ballard, which is 5 mana for a planeswalker that allows you to add 3 mana to your mana pool to cast instant sorcery spells, which is the majority of our deck. Plus 1 is discarded to 3 cards, then draw that many cards, so it's going to allow you to really fix. And the -8, you get an emblem with you may cast instant sorcery cards from your graveyard. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So it's going to be another good finisher if we can get the emblem out. Fight Fire with Fire is a 3 mana sorcery with kicker 6. If you kick it, well, Fight with Fire deals 5 damage to target creature, and if you kick it, it deals 10 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets instead. So it's just a big 10 damage spell that can finish off an opponent, that can take care of the board again. You can split it with some of your Enraged cards. Pretty good. Then we have Healing Grace. This is one that I wasn't too happy with included, but preventing the next 3 damage, you could actually prevent some damage to your own commander if you have like your Trapjaw for like an Hour Devastation, as then it can prevent some of the damage and it doesn't kill it, and then you still gain the 3 life and you can still do the 3 damage off of your commander. Then we have the Invoked the Divine. This is destroy target artifact or enchantment and you gain 4 life. This means that you can destroy an artifact, enchantment, gain 4 life, and do 3 damage to something. I think that enchantments and artifacts are going to play a very, very pivotal role in this format. So that's kind of the gist of the deck. Nothing too exciting as of yet. I think that we might see some other filler cards in Dominaria, and if they work in here, there are definitely some cuts in this deck that aren't necessary, like the Slaughter the Strong or the Sacrament, that could be in those particular places. If you have any interesting cards that could easily go in a Brawl deck with Firesong and Sunspeaker, definitely put it in the comment section below. And be sure to come over and check out roguedeckbuilder.com. The article should be going up tomorrow for the Bad Brews #2, where we'll have all of the submissions from all of the patrons that submitted a deck and all of the writers, and you can vote for a deck that you think is the best Bad Brew. Now, I think some people took this literally last time and voted for the Baddest Brew, which was definitely Tasty's deck last time around. I barely edged out Tasty, but anyway, I don't think that that's what Tyler had in mind when he meant vote for the Baddest Brew. So vote for the one you like, the one that you could see yourself playing, or the one that's just the most interesting or creative, or whatever metrics that you use by judging if you like a deck or not. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.